Islam is growing in Africa. This can be attributed to a variety of factors, especially a higher fertility rate, immigration, and conversion from indigenous faiths to Islam. Islam has a long history in Africa, especially in the north, where it is the vast majority. But there are not many demographic changes in the north, as the small community of Christians remains growing at almost the same rate as the Muslims. It is in sub-Saharan Africa where Islam is growing, especially in the west and east of the continent, with the island countries and Central Africa not seeing many changes. Using sources from 2004 and 2006 on government sites in old versions of Wikipedia, and comparing them to present-day statistics, I have created these two maps. Green means a Muslim majority, with the darkest green nearing or at 100%. Red means there isn't a Muslim majority, with the darkest red meaning that the country has under 5%. All countries in Africa have a Muslim community. The high fertility rate is the largest reason why Islam is growing in Africa. The countries with the highest fertility rates in the world, such as Mali and Niger, are both Muslim majority. In Tanzania and Nigeria, both projected to become one of the largest countries in the world by population, Muslims have a higher fertility rate than Christians. Specifically, in sub-Saharan Africa, the fertility rate is a full one child more. Muslims have more children for a variety of reasons. Most of Africa's Muslims live in the impoverished Sahel, meaning that they are poor and have high mortality rates among their children. But in places where the Muslim minority is overall rich, and there is not much difference in fertility rates, because of a higher proportion of young people worldwide being Muslim, more Muslims are having kids. The fertility rate in Muslims is a large factor in cementing Islam's position as the majority religion in countries like Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso and Nigeria. Sierra Leone went from 60% to nearly 80% Muslim in the past 2 decades, and this was with a relatively low conversion rate from Christianity to Islam. In countries with a reverse situation, where Christians slightly outnumber Muslims, there is a growing population of Muslims as well because of higher fertility rate. When 2018 data was released, it was noticeable to see how fast Islam had grown in countries like Ethiopia, Côte d'Ivoire and Mozambique, nearing 50%. Even in countries with previously tiny communities, such as the DRC, the population has grown to slightly over 10%. A higher fertility rate is the sole factor in increasing Muslim populations in countries where the Muslim community is almost non-existent, such as the Congo and Zambia. Immigration is the second key factor in the growing numbers of Muslims in many of these countries. Not immigration from the countries traditionally seen as the Muslim world, but immigration from Muslim parts of Africa. The best example is the Central African country of Gabon. Gabon had a very tiny Muslim community until the past few decades. Due to immigration, Muslims have grown to somewhere over 15% of the population. The late president, Ali Bongo, is a convert to Islam himself, making him one of the few heads of state to have a minority religion in their country. This is also what is occurring in some of the better developed countries in West and South Africa, such as Ghana, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. People from poorer countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, all Muslim majorate, arrive in these countries for employment opportunities or to escape poverty. Because they tend to be poorer, immigrants have much more children on average, further increasing the amount of Muslims in these countries. Immigration is what has managed to start new Muslim communities in countries such as Angola. South Africa is unique, as it has many immigrants from the Middle East, and Arab Muslims are the majority. Immigrants from Lebanon can be found in small numbers across the continent, forming the basis of the community in some countries. Mauritius is another unique case, with Muslims being mostly from India there. But for the most part, it's African Muslims arriving in other countries on the continent. A small amount of the growth of Islam in Africa can be contributed to conversion. Despite what I hear some Muslims say, it is not a major factor, and Christians are not commonly converting, though cases exist. Remember Gabon's late president. But people who follow indigenous faiths are converting. This has increased the amount of Muslims in countries such as Togo, Mali, Benin, and Guinea-Bissau, where these animist faiths were the majority for a long time, but it is switching to Christianity and Islam. Guinea-Bissau now has a Muslim plurality. Mali has become over 95% Muslim. The most significant increase is in Niger, which went from 80% to 98% Muslim within 15 years, almost entirely because of people converting to Islam from animist beliefs. Conversion in the other Muslim-majority part of Africa, the East Coast, is also not very high, but is more important. In these countries, Muslims tend to be a richer minority than others, due to being traders and merchants, so sometimes conversion due to marriage happens. Countries with small but vocal Muslim populations, like Zimbabwe, Rwanda and Uganda, received Islam via these traders, who carried out conversion missions, and successfully converted some followers of the indigenous faiths. For the most part, both religions coexist peacefully. Countries such as Sierra Leone have earned a reputation for having extremely good relations between Muslims and Christians. Foreign observers have noted that Islam in countries like Mali and Tanzania is moderate compared to in the Middle East. Of course, there are some problems. Boko Haram is an extremist group in West Africa that has worsened relations between Muslims and Christians in Nigeria. The most soured country is the Central African Republic, where attacks against Muslims are commonplace, though the government has been trying to stop this for better relations among all. As Islam grows in Africa, hopefully it shall be a force of good.